Some, sobering news front and center with the Redskins as Ron Rivera diagnosed with cancer, but plans to continue coaching. That had to go through camp like a shockwave yesterday in Ashburn.
We were out of the facility, by then. So let's just be clear that nobody knew when we were still at the facility, and certainly when we last talked to Ron about, roughly 11:15, 11:30 yesterday morning. So, it's what do we say? The word you never want to hear, even if it seems right now on the surface very treatable, very much in control. Listen, Dan Snyder is going to spare. Dan Snyder doesn't spend money on everything. One thing he does not spare any expense on, I think, is getting people that he reveres, trusts, admires, loves, and clearly Ron Rivera is in that category. He will not spare any expense whatsoever to get him the best medical treatment, the best specialists, the best doctors, the best anything. If he needs to take time off, if he needs, to cut back, whatever the situation is, we can say a lot of things about Dan. One thing that I know from many, 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 many people that have dealt with Dan in this regard, again, he will spare zero expense. He will turn over every rock possible to try and help Ron Rivera and his family, as well he should. That's the humane thing to do. That's the right thing to do. And all we can do here, guys, I don't know how you all approach it. I mean, listen, I was, I'm going to have a hard time criticizing Ron Rivera about anything this year, right? I mean, if if they suck in the third quarter and the familiar storyline is, well, they don't make halftime adjustments like coaches do a lot of halftime adjustments in 8 minutes in the locker room, I'm going to have a hard time doing that. I'm just being honest with you because I'm a human being and I like Ron and I respect Ron, and it's going to be really hard for me to criticize a guy going through what he's going through on and off the field.
Right. No, it's understandable, and we're all prey to that. Anytime you get to know a guy and you like a guy, if you see him struggle, it's hard to knock him. But I'm just gonna try to take the naive approach that he's gonna lick this. I'm gonna buy the sort of the initial reports that it's something that they think is curable and treatable, and so I'm just gonna assume that. But all that being said, if he did have to step away, it's interesting. Who would be next up? Would it be Jack Del Rio?
Yeah, I was told Jack Del Rio would be it last night. I don't have 100% confirmation on that, but that was my initial hunch. And then I asked somebody, and they said Jack Del Rio is the plan, and that makes sense. Obviously, he's got 190 games as a head coach. I mean, like last year's staff had a bunch of ex-head coaches, so there was no sure thing. Like if something happened to Jay, I always thought it would be Callahan, and it turned out to be that. But there was Callahan, and there was Jim Tomsula, and just other guys. Here, there's one ex-head coach, and it's Jack Del Rio, and he's got almost 200 games of experience. Now, who would run the defense in that regard? I mean, obviously Jack would still have a big part in it. I don't know that part next, but I was told last night it would be a Del Rio, so I'd be stunned if it's anybody else. Hopefully, like Ron himself said to Schefter last night, look, people say, and I don't have enough familiarity with this, but you feel like terrible 3-4 weeks into this thing, depending on your level of treatment and chemo and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. If that part is true, we haven't gotten to that point yet. So I guess we shouldn't be surprised. And again, I'm not saying this will happen. We shouldn't be surprised if one day, a week from now, a week and a half from now, if we show up and Ron's not there. Or if Ron has to leave the practice field early because he feels awful and something like that happens. So we might have to deal with that just, out of the blue, a week from this Wednesday.
Yeah. All right, it's unpredictable. The disease is unpredictable. It really is. So, but like you said, he'll have the best doctors in the world.
Yeah. That's one thing you feel really good about. Not to say that people here, with the new medical treatment team and training staff, I feel a lot more confident about the group that they have now. But again, Dan, just like he did for Trent, just like he's done for, 100 other people that he admired and loved and respected and wanted to take care of. Again, Dan might not get Dan might not treat every employee and pay them fairly, but he's going to spare zero expense when it comes to helping Ron Rivera. And that's the right thing to do, by the way, obviously.
Right. All right, let's talk about the football team here, the actual play on the field so far and what you've seen. Yesterday we were getting some reports. J.P. Finley was critical. Michael Phillips was on Dukes' show, and he said he was kind of attacking the wide receiver group, which is not really a surprise, but I mean to say it's not even NFL caliber, I guess, is a dig. What are you seeing the same thing? Are you seeing sort of an uneven, like I don't know, just like a bad offense so far?
Well, let's start with Dwayne. He went from okay on Tuesday. You know, we've only been out there 3 days because a couple of practices got canceled due to rain last week. When they have to move inside, we're not allowed to go to practice anymore. And we don't even get pool reports and whatever. Now we'll get pool reports if they have to cancel. So we've only been out there 3 days. But Dwayne Haskins went from okay on Tuesday, and I mean okay might be generous, to meh on Wednesday to really bad yesterday. Now, how much of that is due to they were down Jaron Christian and Sadiq Charles at left tackle, so Cornelius Lucas, who might not even be a good enough backup right tackle, was basically taking most reps, if not all reps, at starting left tackle. Yeah, certainly that is a part of it, but Dwayne has consistently been high, and I mean really high at times. Like he overthrew probably by 3 or 4 feet a 6'5" tight end in the red zone yesterday named Marcus Ball out of Ohio State, who, by the way, looks the part and might be the number 2 tight end already on this team. Now, you know, again, they're challenged at that position, but for whatever that means. But he was high. He was erratic. He's been inconsistent in terms of his accuracy completely, especially in team drills. He had a sack strip fumble from the blind side. Again, part of that could be the left tackle situation yesterday. Threw an interception in the red zone, in the end zone to Greg Stroman. Ron said afterwards, look, you know, I mean, he basically danced around the poor performance, and he said as long as he is making the right decisions, and he said we'll have to review the tape to find out whether he was making the right decisions. Okay, number one. Number two, he said he's doing a good job of taking coaching points from Scott Turner and Ken Zampese, the new quarterbacks coach, and making adjustments during the practice. So he's listening, he's absorbing, and so they're pleased about that part of the progress. But for all the offseason Nirvana talk and the offseason of Dwayne and all the pictures and the videos and the sweaty abs and all that stuff, some of that good feeling and good karma after 3 practices, guys, in my opinion, is washed away.
Wow.
As far as the wide receiver group, I think Michael's a little bit hard on them, quite honestly. I don't think it's a great group by any means, and losing Harmon and, you know, Cody Latimer being, you know, in the legal situation that he's in, you know, obviously complicates things. But I don't think it's a great group by any means. I think it's an average group probably at best, with maybe some high-end potential of, you know, some young guys. You know, Cam Sims has looked good. Isaiah Wright has looked good. You know, the young guys have flashed in camp. Now, can they do it in actual games? You know, who knows?
Rooster, with the Washington football team being thin at wide receiver, how much does that put on the running backs' plates, the guys who are good at catching the ball out of the backfield, the McKissicks, Gibson, Bryce Love? He showed that he could do that at Stanford. How much does that get incorporated into Scott Turner's offense with, you know, just a thin wide receiver core?
Really good question, Cakes. And I went into camp thinking that was going to be an emphasis, and I walk away from 3 days saying knowing that will be an emphasis. There will be. I was talking to who was I talking to yesterday? Brian Baldinger from NFL Network, and we were just, you know, kind of talking about, like, you know, different teams around the league and different offenses, and, you know, we both agreed, and he was only there yesterday, this is going to be a running back heavy, not just running the football, running back heavy offense. He mentioned what, you know, they used to do in Carolina, and Norv and Scott, you know, a lot of swing passes, a lot of naturally designed screens. All offseason, the tape that I've studied, everybody that I've talked to, everything that I know about this offense, it's not going to be just check down Charlie, and that's the last resort. From time to time, you're going to get that, right? They're going to try and stretch the field with Terry McLaurin. They're going to be attack aggressive oriented when they can. But a lot of this offense, especially with the dearth of talent at wide receiver and tight end, quite honestly, and the questions on the offensive line is going to be get the ball out of Dwayne's hands and get it into space or get it in the hands of players that can make something happen in space. And when you look at the running backs, and they worked on it constantly in practice, and it was constantly a theme during one-on-ones and even in 11-on-11s, a bunch of naturally designed screens, a lot of swing passes, a lot of running backs going out naturally into the route. Maybe they chip a block somewhere in that range, and then they slip right out into the middle of the field and find a little hole in the zone, that type of thing. It's not going to be, again, where Jay Gruden really only wanted to throw to the running backs a lot when he had no choice. It's going to be by design. I think you're going to see a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of jet motion, a lot of motion in general. I think you're going to see packages where Antonio Gibson lines up in the backfield, and they're getting him a lot of reps as a running back because they knew he was raw there, and then he splits out in motion wide. McKissick, same thing. He can run routes from inside, outside. They can do different things and have so many versatile parts in this running back group, even without Darius Geis, that's, I think, where the bread and butter of this offense, besides McLaurin, and God help us if something happens to him, that's where the bread and butter of this offense is going to be. And it's not just in the run game, it's in the passing game to the running backs.
Give us some positives, maybe on the defensive side.
Yeah. So, Troy Apke looks pretty good, and he's been running with the ones all week, and Landon Collins at free safety. And he's got speed, and he's now in his third year, and I thought he played reasonably well at times last year. So he's ahead of Sean Davis, who they brought in, who's still coming back from that shoulder injury. I think Ron Darby looks really, really good. Feisty, competitive as bleep. Right there, just dragging on guys and all of that. I mentioned Greg Stroman should have had 2 interceptions, So the cornerbacks seem to be, again, for whatever its 3 practices are worth, guys, certainly there. They love Kevin Pierre-Louis. And they had him lining up with the ones and John Bostic at linebacker earlier this week. That's a guy that they have high hopes for that can really be more than just a special team stud, that can be a linebacker, type, and that can, use his speed. And then, the defensive line, look, they should look good, but there's a couple of young guys like a Ryan B. and a Jordan Brailford that look like they have some speed and some I don't know if they'll make the roster. It's early, obviously. But, they have stood out. And then real quickly, I'll give you one, just an overall positive. I mean, how could we ignore we talk about Dwayne and whatever is going to happen there, and I'm sure he'll still start September 13th against the Eagles, but just to see Alex Smith in 9-on-9s yesterday, guys, even for 3 throws or whatever it was, and just deal with a live pass rush, and to see him for a couple of times in 7-on-7 before that, you just walk away going, for all the bad things with this organization and how bad the last 2.5, 3 months have been, and it'll continue to get worse, that's one good thing.
Does he look like he's favoring the leg at all?
I think he does, and I asked him the other day. That was my question for him, Jason. If it affects his mechanics at all, if he's noticed anything, and he said no, he hasn't noticed anything, but he's definitely paying attention. When he drops back, and then when he kind of rocks forward a little bit in his throwing motion, from a closer distance, when I can get a better view on him in the middle of the field as opposed to, when he's all the way far at the other end of the field, when I can't, exactly hone in on him, I can see a little bit of I don't know if gait is the right word. I can see a little bit of gingerness. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a quarterback coach, but it doesn't look like it's 100% natural, and I think that's totally normal. I think that's fine. That's why they're not throwing him in 11-on-11 yet, but that's not that far away, 11-on-11, and then when he graduates to that, then they have to figure out, okay, how do we put him into a game when we can't simulate him getting sacked or tackled? And that, I have no idea, and Alex didn't know how they were going to do that. I have no idea how they're going to do that. I mean, you're just going to have to trust it at some point because you can't sack and tackle and hit the quarterback in practice. And there is no preseason games. Not that he would have played in preseason games anyway, in my opinion, but there's none. So I don't know how you do that.